Hello everyone. So, what you see in front of you is basically my thoughts. I mean, just ignore this side. Um, I'll go over this whole notion of gradual disempowerment. Actually, I have a video on it already, so if you want, you can check that out about the basics. So, what you see here is a more of a solution, like an operational solution of what I want to build. Um, yeah, so I'll get started. So as you can see on the top, as AI capabilities increase, it will lead to this notion of gradual disempowerment. It's not seen, but that's what I call GDR. And there are like multiple components to it, but in a way, it's like the elite decoupling um, like where the elites can start doing things on their own without needing the help of the other people in the economy. So that's one aspect of it. And the other one is what I call erosion of agency. So right now, people in democracies, in an economic, you have some leverage. People care about you because you contribute to the economy or have a voting share. And as AI gets more powerful, these notions of uh, economic and political leverage will start eroding. By eroding, what do I mean? So um, right now there'll be consequences if, let's say, um, some entity wants to just do whatever they want, right? Like, and if it goes against the interest of certain groups, they can boycott or they can stage protests, and these have value because even though it might be a long shot, there is at least a fighting chance um, in getting to have a say in how these companies operate. You can you can choose to vote for representatives and whatnot, but if AI gets more powerful, then there's gonna be like robots and who can just take care of these factories, who can do whatever the companies need. And it might start slow, like it'll just do simple tasks, and it's not gonna really matter much. But then, as things get more powerful, um, the level of control that humans have in these systems is gonna reduce. By that I mean, it's not just any humans, I guess. Like obviously, people in the top will amass a lot of control. So the way I look at it is like, where let's say this is your org chart, this is your CXOs, and then you have like a layer of middle management, and then in the end you have ICs, which are individual contributors, and then they do something in the real world. So this is like your organization, this is your org, and then this is the outside world. So they do something, and then usually what happens is okay, there are things happening here which trickles down, trickles to the top, and then they get to decide. I mean, it's kind of recursive. There's like probably these kind of structures in between. It's more like a tree, and then they decide, and then they give orders to their chain of command, and then eventually someone carries out directions, and this is a feedback. So right now, the way things are progressing, what we can see is the value structures are um, or like the value that AI is gonna give without any guardrails. I'm not saying this is like a rule of law or anything. Obviously, things are malleable, but without any checks, it's gonna look something like this. This is like the AI value generated. So as you can see, it's intentional because like there's like a huge chunk of value for the top guys, and it starts getting lower and lower, and somewhere in the middle management, I think it will just drop because you see it now, right? Like there's like coding agents, or like for a lot of simple tasks, AI can just probably do it. It won't be just probably like this. I think a real way would be something like a Jaguar kind of thing. I guess like something like this, because as capabilities change, it'll kind of look like this. But I think platonically something like this makes sense. So yeah, as you can see, there's just a huge chunk of your value in the top, and then it just trickles, and there's nothing much in the bottom. And which means like, okay, let's say it's just that the interests of these people are slowly gonna erode in whatever way, because they just don't have any say really, unless there are laws and regulations put in place. It's just not gonna matter anything. Like it's just like they don't. Sure, they do. They can probably like quit and join something else, but eventually like nothing. They can't be in the org and do something about it. So this is how one way could do, and um, there is this. So this is for like economies, like companies and stuff. But the same can happen in states, right? Like we can think, okay, this is like your prime minister or something, and then there are these bureaucrats, and then we like most normal people, we are down below here. And same thing can happen. Like if there's like a parallel uh, system where your AIs can just get most of the work done in in your nation, then yeah, I mean you don't have a say in um, any matter, because um, like the way it's gonna happen is like, yes, like they'll, okay, this is your government, and then there'll be companies who are lobbying, and then they'll probably put forth laws which are in the interest of those companies by uh, by the gradual development. Most of the companies will be run by AIs, AI employees, and in an indirect chain of control, it's like all your laws or all your uh, interests and all your um, pretty much like what it takes for running a government. It's gonna fall over the uh, it's gonna matter more to like AIs. And the way the gradualism and disempowerment is gonna happen is, okay, so you have these, say, supply chains. So right now your supply chains, like we want to make some food or like some widget or some random thing. It needs like a bunch of things to come together, and then finally it will trickle down to your common user by like maybe Amazon or something. Like they'll just fulfill it. But then so a lot of people don't understand like the sheer complexity of these supply chains. The sole reason each of these nodes fall in place is because finally, like the producer has an incentive, because eventually someone's gonna buy it, and then they'll go through this chain of buying, selling, and then eventual selling is like either a corp or a individual consumer. And if first of all, okay, yeah, these guys don't have like economic leverage, so their wages are gonna, I mean, in the near term it will increase obviously, but then after some point it'll start going low. So which means, what is the incentive for each of these nodes to sell? Right, like it's gonna probably, like these guys will start reconfiguring to what has value, and they soon realize that, yeah, actually end consumers, they are pretty valueless. Like they're not earning much, they don't have spending power, so they're just not gonna be optimized for it. But at the same time, these AI powered corporations, which is, I mean, obviously there'll be some humans, but for most reasons, like, yeah, AIs, like these run by AIs, and they'll start optimizing. These supply chains are gonna by default optimize for these entities. And yeah, that's like a huge risk. Like people haven't seen, okay, how, I mean, COVID was a recent example, and just a small shock sent waves across these supply chains. And yeah, and similar things gonna happen, but obviously it won't be like a severe shock, but it's gonna be a shock over like a longer duration, I guess. So, and yeah, I mean, if the supply chains optimize for this, then probably we lose the basic infra to sustain life for a normal human. So this is the whole gradual disenfranchisement. So how do we solve it? So I have like I'm calling it like uh, I mean there's this theorem in math called sandwich theorem. So it's like okay, you have a function and you want to find the limit of the function. So the way you do it is like you have a function, you know a known function, uh, which is upper which your unknown function that you want to find. Like this, like you show this f function is an upper bound, and then you show there's another function which is like lower bound, and then you kind of squeeze it and say, hey, this is between this and this is reaching a limit. So this unknown function will also reach a limit. So I'm kind of taking that approach where okay, let's try to regulate from the top, and we'll make something happen, and we'll also empower people from the bottom, and maybe they'll be attached to their capabilities will also increase, and in a way, uh, these massive corps can be kind of governed to I don't know. I mean, this is something that we all have to figure it out. But that's like the high level plan I've got to do from like a top down and a bottom up approach, and I'm calling it like the open application ecosystem for AI. Yeah, that's a mouthful. So I mean, you can pronounce it as oh yeah, something like that. Like so, the entire idea is okay. Hey, the base model is going to be extremely controlled by few corps, but soon it's going to be much cheap, and open source will catch up. But just like electricity, just because something is a commodity doesn't mean it will be used uh, in the same way by everyone. People will use it to whatever affordabilities they have on these commoditized resources, and that's where the application layer comes in, where we need to kind of commoditize certain application layers um, to reap the benefits of ever increasing cheaper intelligence sources. And the way, I mean, there are like a bunch of projects, but the main one is something I call Sensemaker. So the Sensemaker platform is, you can think of it as okay, it's like an operating system for your life, your business, or any operations that you're doing, right? So imagine like you're at the top of it, and then you want to make sense of your world. And first of all, you need to get all the data that comes from the world, and you need an application to make sense of it. And then uh, once you once you make sense of the data, you have to make certain decisions and actions, and those actions have to trickle back and affect the real world. And that's the cycle that continues. So the way you do it is I'm taking inspiration from this uh, software called Palantir. It's a very controversial software, but just look at it from a technical perspective. Um, I'm not saying it's the panacea, but I do think there is some important lessons to be taken from it. So the whole it all centers on something called an ontology. Uh, I mean, it's just a fancy word actually. It's like it comes from philosophy. The basic premise is okay, how do we make sense of the world? There are entities. So there's a webcam, that's an entity. There's this book, there's a pen, and there's my glasses. So these are all like ways we bifurcate the world and make sense of it. Obviously, we can just keep on going lower and lower. Ultimately, it's just quarks, I guess. Um, but you don't want to get stuck up in all that details, right? Like the whole point is okay, what is the right level of abstraction for you to make sense of your world? And ontology is precisely that. Okay, so let's take a personal use case. I read books, I read articles, I watch YouTube videos, I have my health tracker, um I watch like there are a bunch of things that you do in a person. Like there are people in my life, there's work, there's like pets, whatnot, and these are the entities in my world, and I want to make sense of it. Like I need to ingest all the data, and also these entities don't exist in isolation. There are relationship between these entities. So maybe there's this person entity, and then uh, like my parents are a type of person, and then there'll be like my parents, and then maybe there are like siblings. So a person, like maybe there's friends. So so you can have these entities, and then now let's say I have a meeting or I have like a function. Now a function can have a bunch of people, so I can